Good morning, Sanbonani. This is Manifesto Unpacked. I am Bafana Modise. This year, South Africans are heading out to cast their vote and make their vote count. In studio today, we have ATM, African Transformation Movement. This is Manifesto Unpacked. Tune in, turn up, and take action. Let's jump into it. My guest in studio is Luyanda Msipha. Luyanda, good morning, my brother. How are you?
Good morning, Bafana. I'm okay, yourself?
I can hear you well, man.
Good morning, Bafana. Okay,
yes. I speak like a leader.
thank you for having me. Thank you for having ATM in the studio.
No,
Appreciate the opportunity.
definitely, my brother. I think one thing that most people always ask themselves is, this is relatively more of a new party in parliament.
Yes.
You have done well for the past couple of years.
Yes.
But for someone who is an undecided voter who doesn't even know what ATM stands for or what it stands for, basically, give us a description of the party and what it stands for.
So the ATM is popularly known, the African Transformation Movement. Well, we were first registered in 2018. That's when we started to register to contest the first national government election.
Yes.
The ATM is a formation, basically was formed by a council of churches. So it's a group of churches coming from the independent churches. You know, the churches that are normally sidelined, your Zion, your Shembe, they came together and said, perhaps, you know, we need a new direction because, I mean, as part of the church people who are part of the society and you get impacted or get affected by your normal happenings in the country.
Yes.
And, you know, you try raise those issues with the government and you don't get anywhere. So to cut the long story short, they gathered together. They then decided to say, we need a political leg to address our concerns, but not only for us as the Council of Churches, but for the broader society.
So would you say you are a religious organization in a way?
Not necessarily a religious organization. We call ourselves a faith-based movement. And that's what we call ourselves because we're grounded in faith. We're much more in terms of value-driven because we appreciate the impact or really the role that is played by religious organization, traditional organization in terms of the value system building of a human being, the character of a human being. And so that is why it was important for us to consider all those elements, all those religious groups, faith-based groups, to give us a direction going forward. We were formed by them, and President Zungula, that is our president, Vuyolethu Zungula.
Yeah.
He was previously leading a faith-based student association at universities. He was then appointed by this structure to come lead ATM. So really for us, we're not really politicians as such. We are people that were concerned really about the state of our nation. We don't have a history of politics prior to ATM. And we started contesting the election. We got 2 seats in 2019, the first national elections.
Yeah.
The local government elections, we got more seats. I mean, right now in the province, we're sitting with 4 seats, one in Gauteng. Yeah, it's in Gauteng. So we've got an MMC in Gauteng, in Johannesburg. It's the city of Johannesburg. We've got a mayor currently in the city of Mogale City. We've got a speaker at Tshwane. We've got a city as well in the Guruleni region. So we've done pretty much well.
No, yeah, I must say, you know, you guys have done a good job. Obviously, I've seen Vuyo in Parliament speaking so passionately about South Africa and the nation, and also being a movement that is born out of a church group, or if one had to say, out of a religious group, being value-driven. What is your view on the moral degeneration of South Africa?
Indeed, it's one of our concerns, and I think if you look at our values, one of our values, we call it Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a value system that date back, you know, a while ago from Africans, you know, and it then got adopted by other, you know, religious formations or group, but it's a really a value that you find from your traditional homes, your faith, even ordinary people. And over the years, you'll see that our political landscape has changed. If I were to say today, I mean, there's the famous things that us people who form part of the churches, when you then talk about politics, people, you know, look at otherwise to say, you don't go to politics because politics these days is viewed as a dirty game. if you look at the moral degeneration out of our youth, the drug system, things are getting worse and worse. And that is why I was saying for us as the ATM, it is important that before you deal with politics as politics, you first focus in a person to try and understand a person on its own, to try and, initiate Ubuntu within a person. Because once you do that, you stand a better chance of transforming the politics on its own. So for us, that is very much key. It is our center of our values and the center of our principle.
I like that. I love that, because most people tend to say, we need more churches to stand up and to kind of revive the moral regeneration of our society, because most our morality is going on a down slope. You look at the schools, you look at that. And actually, I'm going to start with this issue of early childhood development. I know that on your manifesto, you speak about prioritizing early childhood development. Is this by making nursery schools more accessible, improving the education in the nursery schools? I mean, usually they're just kids who are just going to school between 0 and 7. Or what do you mean when you prioritize childhood development?
So if you read in terms of the social studies, they'll tell you that, the most critical years of a child is between 0 and 7 years.
True.
And so if you want to nurture a child and if you want to nurture a leader of tomorrow, you need to make sure that you've got systems in place right there. Mm-hmm. Currently, we've got, an approach that is being taken in terms of government where they prioritize, children, or when you get to matric level, that's when they spend more money. They try to fix children. But really, if you've missed it at the early child development, then you've lost it. And that's where you build, your future leaders of today. That's where you build a character of a child. That's where you build morals of a child. And at that early age, that is where it is important. And for us, it's quite central to say early childhood development must not only be focused in terms of your normal education, but we need to then spend time in nurturing and building characters of these children. We need to have a clear curriculum coming from the government that focuses on the character of a child, as opposed to say, when a child graduates or from the early childhood development, they need to know mathematics from this level to that level. They need to know that. But we also need a clear path to say, how then do we develop a character of a child that you'd appreciate should they become leaders of tomorrow? So
now, moving from childhood, we have an issue of basic education in high schools and primary schools.
Yes.
And we see a lot of 30% pass rate recently.
Yes.
What is your attitude or your ATM's position on basic education? Do we keep it as it is? Do we change it? Do we change the curriculum? Do we take the marks higher to 50%? How would you govern the high schools or schools in general, basically from grade 1 to grade 12?
Yeah. So for me, I think what is important is the quality of education that's there, as opposed to the grading part of it.
Okay.
Because if you look at it right now, if somebody passes at 30% or passes at their matric at 30%, they would not be able to go and do a medicine degree or an engineering degree in any way. So really, what you should be focusing on is the quality of the education. Right now, our education system is too theoretical. And we need to change that and introduce what you do at CETA level, the colleges, and bring it closer to say, when somebody gets to grade 10 or get to matric, they need to have a trade of some sort, so that should they not be talented enough to go to the education system, whether it should be universities or technical university, but they should at least have some sort of a skill to make ends meet, as early as when they graduate in matric. For example, right now, if my phone breaks the screen, where do I go? I'll probably go
Mohammed.
in Joburg, Mohammed. Yet, that is a clear problem that we have identified, or an opportunity that we've identified to say, there's a demand here. I mean, if you want to build a house, you're probably going to get somebody coming from Lesotho or Maputo or somewhere. It is really challenges that our government is aware of, but they're not doing enough.
So your solution is basically to say, in the high school curriculum from grade 10, introduce a skill-based system whereby the learners can leave school with rather a matric and maybe some trade,
whether
electrical or whether it can be mechanical.
Correct.
But live with something as they live.
Yes.
So now we talk about tertiary education. What you see, NSFAS right now is crumbling down. A lot of students to this day, they didn't get funding to go into higher education.
Yes.
Is ATM going to provide a free education?
Indeed, I think that we do support 100%
Free
the free
education.
education.
Okay.
But over and above that, what we are saying is that we need as a nation to really prioritize ourselves in terms of our goals, our vision. Currently, other than the National Development Plan, which really we've lost direction,
It's been
long
too long.
ago.
It's
It's been too long.
Yeah.
It's outdated. We don't have a vision as a country. We don't have what do you call it, a blueprint that would say, in the next 5 to 10 years, 15 years down the line, however long, these are the skills that we'll be looking at. And therefore, from your primary to your high schools, you start working and channeling children towards that direction, because unless you've got a vision, we'll continuously have such problems when NSFAS is crumbling, because they are funding too many degrees which really post, their university studies, we don't have opportunities for them. And that problem is continuously compounding and compounding. So we're saying free education, the basis of it should be a clear vision to say, where do we want to take our country? What do we want to see our country in the near future?
Luyanda, you're politicking. Will you provide free education from tertiary level for all students, or how are you going to handle this issue? Are you going to increase the budget of NSFAS? Are you going to scrap the bursary system and rather open, let the government finance the varsities? What is your stance on free education per se?
We support free education, and ATM advocates for free education. And that's why I'm wary to stop it at that level, because free education in the current system, yes, we support it 100%, but it is not sustainable when you don't have a clear direction. And that does not lie on students, does not lie on kids. Yes, kids, if that's what they qualified for, that's what they want to study, by all means, they need to study that. But the bargain lies really with those vision bearers, which is the government. And we're saying, really, that's where the problem sits. They need to start, doing something different. They need to change. They need to really have a clear vision in terms of the skills that we require. I mean, if we are now in the AI industry or AI revolution, where coding and everything else becomes a necessity.
Yes.
You'd think a government like South Africa, who claims to be, one of the best government, would have already started introducing the basic coding courses from your early,
Grade 10,
grade 10, because that is where the vision is going. It shows that you've got a clear vision of where you are going. So we need a rather a proactive government, and that is where, as ATM, we say we're coming in that space.
There's a nice thing that I read here, and it says the ATM standardization of post-matric military training for the youth and redeploy them into the labor market. So the ATM is saying is going to reintroduce or bring back conscription, where after matric you go to the army, and after the army you go back into the labor market. Do you really think that we should be doing that now, having young people after matric going into the army, conscription wise?
Yeah, it's not necessarily limited to the army and that, but we're saying we need to have a clear program where post-matric students can come in and get them ready for the next level, which would be universities. But at that time, student will have a clear clarity in terms of where they go. And that for me is quite important, because it closes the gap where post-matric, more than 80% students don't continue to universities. And what do you do with them? We are sitting with a problem again. So the moment you create that route to say, post-matric, this is where you need to come in. And this is where I want to come in to elaborate maybe on my point, to say it's not really limited onto that. At ATM, we're very much concerned, or we advocate that much in terms of the microeconomy space. To a sense that we're saying, we need to develop policies in the microeconomy space where only South Africans and even the youth in that will participate in the microeconomy space, being that the microeconomy space being your township economy, your inner city economy, your rural economy. We're saying close that economy so that you give young people more time to learn and understand, support that space as the government. And we're saying that space hand in hand with your army and that could be used to incubate, our future entrepreneurs into the space.
But it says here, it's a standard post-matric military training. So if it's standardized, I think it means that after matric, every single young person will go through military training. And then, just like many other countries that I know, they do that, right? Some countries, they've kind of let this thing go. The previous apartheid regime did the same thing, right? For issues of discipline, for issues of patriotism. If you're a young boy, after matric, straight to the army. Is that going to be the standard of ATM? Is that what you are going to do as in government?
Indeed. And I'll tell you why, just to add on that. South Africa, if anyone from anywhere, they think of South Africa, we don't have a certain value system that would identify with South Africa. And that's what we're lacking. We lack that value system, that patriotism, that if somebody from the UK or from wherever, from Ghana, they think of South Africa, do they have a certain characteristics or certain value system that they can identify with South Africa? And we're saying it is high time really that we focus on patriotism, because unless we do that, 10, 15 years, I don't know for how long, would really be left with no patriots. And currently, if you can see, our system allows, dual citizenship, allows for anyone anywhere to participate in the public offices. And before you know, we won't have a country. So we're saying it's important to instill that patriotism element in kids and everyone.
No, I hear you. Likely the youth will support that move and say, yeah, let's go to the military after matric. Let's do it. Because one other issue that you mentioned here on your manifesto is that you are going to prioritize the holistic development of youth, addressing not only academic qualifications, but also practical skills, resilience, mental health, awareness, and emotional intelligence and problem solving. And I think on this part, I'm going to single out two issues. I think others have already addressed by introducing skills-based system into the basic education schooling. The other one is this mental health issue that young people find themselves in. You have high in the rate of young people committing suicide. Some are falling deep into drugs because of their mental health issues. And we have not seen the state providing any means, either be free rehabilitations or either be free services within the healthcare sector. What would you do as ATM to assist young people to get help with regard to mental health? Because all we see is just people posting about it once people have died or something, but there is no an actual plan in place to help these young people to deal with these issues.
It is indeed a reality we face every day. I come from a township. I come from Soweto. I mean, if you go there during the week, you'll see it's like a weekend. And people are going through so much, particularly young people. And it's actually sad. Now, that problem, I think it's good to also highlight it and place it in the hierarchy of challenges that we face. The mental, unwellness of young people. That is a secondary problem, created one by a failing education system, by the lack of employment and opportunities. And as a consequence, you then face such a problem. And indeed, you want to open more access in terms of the health profession, your psychologists, your psychiatrists, to have them, be there in every clinic or that base to
hospital,
have free access to children, but also have them being proactive. Don't wait for young people to come and approach you, because some of the young people, there's what you call denialism, because you understand to say you're not really sick, but you are sick because you are struggling financially and that, but not understanding because the only solution that you think, if I can find employment, then I'll be fine. but it's got, serious consequences, your mental issues that they have to be attended. And it's quite important. So that is why I was saying, head professionals, every clinic have, psychologists, have them being proactive, channel more funding in that space, because currently there's not really much funding. I mean, if you look at your NGOs that provide this, they're struggling financially.
True.
I mean, you see them complaining every day. There are payments, because those are sometimes the skills or the opportunity or the skills that are sometimes relegated by the state as not important as opposed to the other. I was saying mental illness, mental wellness is very important, and it should be elevated to where it belongs. Fund your NGOs as you should fund them. Have, your social workers and clinics, have them being proactive in the township to address that problem.
And I'm going to jump straight into this one. The current government has given young people 350s as a relief fund. What is your stance on that? Are 350s sustainable? Should you rather increase them? Should you scrap them off? What is the ATM stance on it?
Again, we're dealing with a secondary problem.
But deal with me on that issue alone, yes.
Yeah. So the 350, indeed, we support them. We support, in fact, we support, a living wage, that can sustain our people. In the absence of employment, in the absence of opportunities, it is always welcome to have something that comes in, in somebody. Yes, to help.
So you would just support maybe taking it to 1,000 rand?
Would support, look, we've not done the numbers, but would support a living wage that would sustain the people, because clearly 350 is not sustainable. But as you implement the 350, again, that's why I emphasize, you can't just implement the 350 because you want to implement the 350. Because if you look at the strategy of how they implement the 350, although it is welcome, like I've said, to us as the ATM, but it is some sort, you get a sense to say it is designed to keep those young people there so that they can dependent onto the state, so that they can continue supporting, whoever is the government with votes and keeping them in power. And we're saying where...
Wait a minute. Are you saying the 350s, to some extent, they are used as a way to garner more votes?
Yes, in a sense. And the reason I'm saying this is because there's no clear path in terms of we will implement the 350 from this year to about 5 years. By then, we should have a plan A and B to absorb these young people into the employment opportunities and that. There's none. There's none of that plan. It's just 350 that is handed out. It is growing. I mean, already in terms of your grant system that's there, we're sitting almost, 18 million people already? Now you've got these 350s that are ending. They are forever creating a system of dependency with the hope that, they'll keep them there. I mean, there's this famous thing, Ekasi, when they talk about, but psychologically, that money comes from Ramaphosa, as they would say.
It's not the state, it's not
Ramaphosa
government.
being the ANC. And that is the kind of attitude or the kind of, mentality that clearly is designed to be created so that it can sustain them. So we support it, yes, in principle, but we're saying also there has to be a clear plan to make sure that...
How you roll it out.
How do you roll it out, or also how do you increase it for the remaining one? But majority of those should really be coming into, the labor space, contributing into the economy.
Because I think my view initially that said, I wouldn't mind if you give these young people these 350s, or maybe let's make it 1,000 rand. But he must first go and get a letter somewhere where he's volunteering, where he's gaining a skill, or where he's doing something with his life. Then the government can then say, okay, because you are going to offer or to be under this training or whatever, we will give you this amount. I don't think giving it willy-nilly to anybody is sustainable. But it's better if you're saying, we will give you 1,000 rand, but you must go look for a company that can help you with your skill, or we can volunteer somewhere, get some skill, come back with a letter, and we will pay you for that. Not this willy-nilly 350 plan. I don't think it's going to work. But also the other issue that the young people are struggling with, my brother, it is the arts and culture and sports. Where to make it into your big teams like Orlando Pirates and your Kaizer Chiefs, to make it even into the media industry, to be behind a microphone or be on TV,
yes,
it takes more from them than ever. Yeah, those times are gone where we used to have your talent shows. Those times are gone where you used to have people doing pageants and all of that. And the Ministry of Arts, Sports and Culture, last time I heard about them, they were building a flag for 20 million. So the question is, under ATM, what is your plan to revive arts and sports to make it more easier for young people to get opportunities? I don't want to see Tabo, who used to play good soccer in Soweto, just being a memory. That guy used to be good, but then he's just out. He has never been anywhere with that talent.
No, I agree 100%. I think, particularly in South Africa, we've got so much talent, be it in music, be it in sport, but that is not really, harnessed and channeled towards, proper direction, in terms of support from the government and that. And, to put it in perspective, for every 100 rand that the state, spends, only 51 cents goes to sports and recreation. Only 51 cents out of 100 rand. It just shows the priorities for them, sports and art and culture, and that is not a priority. So we need to change that mentality and understand to say, we've got, people who are talented, who need support. I mean, I can tell you now, Ekas, where I come from any rural areas even, somebody would not do well academically, but you find them to say, or Ekas, they're always DJing because that's where they find themselves. And we don't really have so much of theaters in Makasi to express, the artistic nature. There's gonna be that guy at some point, and as you could playing a story, he's on he's very good at narrating, but that's all it ends. That's where it ends. Because where else are the opportunities? And we're saying really we need to really first change that perspective or that view by really the state, putting out more funds in there. That's one of the first things that really get degenerated, your art centers and that. I mean, if you come here in Joburg, there was one now where our MEC went in Hillbrow. That place, it was supposed to be, a theater or a museum where talent is there, but it's been neglected and occupied by everyone else because that's not really their priority in this government.
That's what I've been saying, Luyanda, that we build all these facilities, right? And after a year or two, they become places where
Exactly.
there is funerals there, but they don't see any activity happening there. And the question is not the building structure, it's how you sustain it. I mean, you have SABC, which is a state-owned enterprise. I think maybe they can partner with those guys to unearth the actors in the townships and the rural areas. They could come up with some program of some sort. If the state could work with even the private sector within these media spaces, we can see a lot of young. Look at TikTok. How many actors are there? How many people keep you entertained? And I feel like if we can be working with that, a lot of young people also would be able to have access to these spaces. But I'm gonna move ahead and jump into this one. We as young people in this country, we are tired of being told about land, and we don't see it. And it just becomes a rhetoric. It does. Do you think that, as ATM, is land your main priorities?
Without land, you are nothing.
True.
In that sense, it is a priority.
True.
But we're saying then our priorities are also divided in terms of, your short, medium,
long term.
And long term. And we have to appreciate to say land would be one of those things that, should you want to resolve it now, you can't because you need a 2/3 majority for that. We're still battling with Section 25 right now, trying to amend, that clause. We're not there yet. So as much as it is important, but it cannot be an issue.
It's not agent.
It's not agent. It cannot be the only thing that we talk about.
True.
And hence that is why in our manifesto we appreciate, the importance of the land. And we're saying, look, there is land that's there already. Look at it, if you go to the rural areas, there's communal land there that's there. And there's a trend that we've identified where, they some places you can see they're trying to commercialize certain aspect of that land. And we're saying it shouldn't be so. That land should remain communal, and people should be there, should be given guarantees or a long-term communal land to use that land. And I'll give you an example. Where I come from, there's tons and tons of lands that's there. Previously, we used to plow when I was growing up and really utilize that land. And right now, if you can go there, that land is sitting there. And I would really describe it. Look, I'm not an expert in terms of land. I would really describe it as some good land, arable land that you can plant on. But because there are no resources coming from the state to say, you've got this portion of land, here's your support, here are the resources, because that's the only thing that people want. There's no support. The land is there, the little land that is there. And we're saying, first, that is why when you read our manifesto, we talk about a green revolution. We're saying, before you get to the bigger things about land that you want to expropriate without compensation, which we support, by the way, but also we need to see you in the smaller things. What are you doing with them? And that is why we're calling for a green revolution. We're calling for a state to really go back there, because you can't expect somebody to start, planting, let's say, 1 hectare or so, and don't get an income for a year or so. We're saying government really should really change strategies and say, young people, this is your rural areas, deal with this land, here's your support. In the meantime, you'll be receiving this type of stipend for 2 years until you guys are in a position where you can start selling your product. Because unless with that element of support and giving people stipend and giving them proper machinery, you'll forever remain with land that's there, and everyone will be coming here in Joburg and start talking the normal rhetoric, land, without proper plan or a tangible plan to say, once you get this land, what are you going to do with it? What are you doing with the land that is really in your position, no matter how small it is?
Because the issue that we have as young people is that we understand the value of land. And you are right, land is everything.
Yeah.
It just has become a rhetoric for many, for the past 30 years, even with the EFF coming into the spotlight, you speaking about land, but then we don't see it being tangible. So then it sounds like it's just more of a sound bite for political points rather than an actual issue that is being dealt with by the state, right? One other issue as young people that we have is the issue of illegal immigration. Illegal immigration, as you have seen for the past couple of years, it is growing every single year. The question is, what is your position as ATM? Are you going to deport illegal immigrants? What is your plan around border control and illegal immigration per se?
Yeah, maybe to start off on that question, the illegal immigration affects us in many ways. And one of them really is the urban land. It affects us quite a lot there. It's in the job opportunities, the economics of this country is affecting us there. Your health system, your infrastructure. So we are really, caring so much as South Africans, with only 16 million people, paying tax, and the spending really, gets more and more because our borders are porous and that. So we're very clear as ATM to say we need strict border control. Whoever is in South Africa illegally, those people must be deported back into their countries. We don't have a problem with anyone coming from anywhere. I mean, right now, in this report that was just released right now by the Minister Alice Mutsoaledi, where they found that almost 300,000 visas were obtained illegally. They found to say there were Chinese, I think 19 of them, registered using one address.
Highway.
And we're saying, such people, it's not really limited, because sometimes it gets confused as if, we've got something about Africans. We're saying everyone who's not here legally should go back into their countries. Well, irrespective of who you are, you should be here legally. We should know who you are and how you entered in the space. But here in South Africa, you find that people break the law. They come in the country illegally. They then get special rights to operate spaza shops in the township without paying anything, without being registered, no taxes, nothing, and people are thriving.
And even the food that they sell is not even...
And sometimes the food that they sell is not up to scratch. How many laws have they broken to where they are? You find people that they've broken the law, they come and get employed. And before you know, their rights has got to be protected of employment. It's really a concern for us. That is why, as ATM, we are calling on Put South Africans First to say that really should be what drives us. And we're saying, let's protect the microscope. And I want to go back to that point because for us it's very key and we're really passionate about that. We're saying
about the ground.
Protect the inner city, the township economy, the rural economy, to only South African to trade there. And maybe to expand on that, if you begin to understand the apartheid government and how they nurtured their own, they failed, they supported them, they failed. Today, the white people or the Afrikaners, they've got big businesses. But it did not happen overnight. It happened with the support of the state, with the economy protected. I mean, back in apartheid, there were causes that you could not start as a black person because they were protected for them. Come 1994, we gain independence. Blacks, ordinary South African, have not had a space to run businesses. And yet, before, when they try, and then everyone is here, from China, from everywhere in Africa, competing for the same space. Where do you see this country going without black entrepreneurs? That is why today, there's an ongoing debate right now about BE. Do you support BE or you don't support BE? That on its own shows the failure of government in developing black industrialists.
Because that one failed completely. The BEE system failed. It just basically became a political arrangement for comrades,
Indeed.
Even though to some extent it kind of helped, but on the bigger scale of things, it only benefited the few. But I'm going to come into this issue. We have something called the National Youth Development Agency. And to some young people in this country, we are not only looking for jobs. We are also business owners. We are also entrepreneurs, and we have not seen. We also have a ministry of small medium enterprises, right? But these two, they have not been effective in supporting small young people to open their businesses and even to train and educate them on how to work around this. There could be some short-term progress then, but you're not seeing the effectiveness on a large scale of things. Are you going to scrap off the NYDA, or are you going to improve it to enable young people to have access to funding for their own business plans, or is it going to be what per se under ATM?
The biggest challenge, you can draft as many plans as you want and establish as many, organizations as you want. And currently, if you look at, your NYDA, small business enterprise, your ITC, they work in silos. Everyone is just doing their own thing. And you don't know why. But my point is that you can establish as many as you want, but without having a clear, vision or a clear plan to say, we want to develop young people for this kind of skills. If you can go back during apartheid, we had industrial zones, where, each zone had, a district where there's manufacturing, there's Abanbayatunga. There are things per district, because that's where you want to start your economy.
Sure.
So right now you've got NYDA. By the way, I've attended that in NYDA, and I know a lot of people who attended that. They teach you entrepreneurship. Just the entrepreneurship that you find on
in
YouTube
school, the
or
theory
anywhere, But it's not really direct, because where would they direct you to? Because there's no plan. And we're saying there has to be a plan. Deal with the working in silos. But you can't deal with that unless you've got a clear vision to say we're working towards something. Right now, they're all trying to do something somewhere in their corner, because in the end of the year, they want to submit to say, we've funded so many people. And if you look at the failure rate of the businesses that they fund, it's shocking.
True.
Because the space is not conducive on its own.
It's just giving out money, sending it off.
You give me money right now, and then next to me, there's a Chinese business. How would I compete in that space? But you're just doing it just for tick boxes.
It's a formality.
That's why you're saying we need to first deal with the microeconomy, remove everyone else, and leave that space to only South Africans, your inner township and rural economy. Because once you do that, you've got the market. you can now clearly plan on the market that you have and strategize and see how you develop. There's already a market. You can channel people towards a vision to say in 15 years down the line, we want to see the microeconomy contributing so much. I mean, that economy is a 500 billion economy. It's not in our hands. And yet you've got a government that's there and, acting as if they're trying to do something with the unemployment that's there. And they're not, because the solution is there. It's clear.
I'm actually coming to that, just following up on the unemployment part.
Yes.
Every political party so far, they're all promising jobs again. Guys, where are these jobs? How are you going to create these jobs? Young people are tired of this rhetoric. We were promised the 6 million jobs with Tuma Mena a couple of years ago. Now there is a party, DA is promising 2 million jobs. I think Bosa is also promising jobs. Everybody has this job plan, but you have not seen where will you get these jobs? How will you create these jobs as an ATM government?
So the first part is that we need to look at it. Obviously, I think I've addressed the microeconomy space.
Sure.
That also point carries weight
Sure.
in this question again. But also, you have to look at the microeconomy space, which is the bigger economy. Really, you can't talk about jobs with this kind of load shedding. It's got so much impact, and clearly you've got a government that doesn't know where want to go. And some people would say, there's too much external influence in this current government that we have, particularly this administration. I mean, you had your ESCOM working very well, where the load shedding was dealt with by Abu Machalako, Brian Molefe, and they introduced, their person there, because one of the first things that they did, by the way, when they fired Abu Machalako and that, Jeff Gauteng came in, the first thing he did was to sign the independent power producers, their contracts. Was to reverse every plan that ESCOM has had in terms of making sure that they build their base load and that. And they introduce, where are we now with the independent power producers? Right now, they reversed a plan on nuclear, which the previous administration wanted. They reversed it and said nuclear is too expensive. They went for independent producers. But if you can listen to the discussion now within the ANC, they're beginning to appreciate,
the nuclear idea.
The nuclear idea. They are beginning to explore, fracking, to say what can we get in terms of gas, because they've appreciated to say, really, you can't do anything with the Indian power producers in terms of supplying your base load. And we need to start there and be clear to say, we've got ESCOM, you've got the coal fleet that's there. Maintain it, make sure that you produce enough base load. The next you can deal with it, because that affects, if you own a saloon, Ekas, with 6 hours, without power, 5 to 8 hours, what does it do
to your business? And it still has to pay rent at the end of the day.
Exactly. So those are the kind of things that you want to deal with at the microeconomy space. Number two, we're saying really national treasure. 30 years down the line, they still spend 80% of their budget in big corporates. With only 20% going to small and medium enterprises. And we're saying that has got to change if we're a government that is serious enough about transforming the society, about creating employment. Change your spending patterns, then you'll see the difference. I mean, the studies are there to say where there are microeconomy spaces, where there are thriving small and medium entrepreneurs, that economic growth. Take, for instance, China, where they are today. It is what? It is because of big conglomerates or big businesses. It's not. It's because of your small and medium businesses. And that's why I want to start if you want to create more opportunities, more job opportunities. And those are things that you can really achieve. They are within their powers, and you can really achieve those with 5 to 10 years if we're a government that is clear, which is what we're trying to change as the ATM.
Sure. But you didn't get me the direct answer, Luyanda.
Yeah.
With all these issues that we have load shedding. We don't think it's going to change anytime soon. Probably might take longer. I'm sure in your manifesto as well here, you have spoken about the job creation. And the question is, how would you create these jobs under this circumstance that we find ourselves in as a country? How will, within this space, how will these jobs be created?
So number one, I don't think the ESCOM issue or the energy power is something that takes long. It just needs a political will.
15 years.
If somebody, it can be resolved quite quickly. It's a political will. If there's enough money for maintenance, you can resolve this thing within a year or so. It can be resolved. Done. with funding and with enough political will, that thing can be resolved. Number two, we're saying, some people would say, there are sizable enough jobs in South Africa that are occupied by people who should not be occupying those jobs.
Okay, meaning?
We've got people coming from everywhere to come and become a security guard. To come and drive in Ubza, to try and we're saying, really, what we understand as per the legislation is that, if you are coming here in South Africa, you can't come and do the most basic job, at the expense of South Africans. And there's this narrative that South Africans are lazy, they are type of jobs that they don't want to do. That's not true.
True.
That can never be true. So we're saying we need to first deal with those to say, if it's not a critical skill, please, man, let's give it to South Africans. That's how you create jobs on those things that are there. There's a legislation already on that. Deal with that. We need to really spend much more time harnessing the entrepreneurship. Starting your own businesses and that, but there's not enough support on that. I mean, your NYDA is not really doing much, on that. Because, I think the biggest fund, they fund you, 50,000?
Yeah, I think it's 50K, yes.
But really, it just shows you about their vision. If they give you 50K, it means you need to remain here. It's either Makota for a car wash.
No, but I think it's a startup.
It's something. But also, we need to really have a clear vision and show, in terms of our bold step, to say, this is where we're going. So, number one, you fix ESCOM, which can take less than a year with the political will. Number two, make sure that critical skills that are non-critical skills are occupied by South Africans.
Jobs, yes.
Jobs, yes. Because there's so much jobs here that are there. Make sure really that Sitaman does something about the skills. Uktunga, right now, if you go to a Josie, people are working on their own. Somebody's doing their shoes. But those are things that should be driven by SETA to protect that space and make sure to say young people participate and make sure to say that space is given to them. And we're saying with the protection of microeconomy, the township inner economy, and that doesn't take long. Because already those people who are trading in the township are not supposed to be there in the first place.
But wouldn't that be deemed as being xenophobic in a way?
You see, that term xenophobic is a very funny connotation, and I'll give you an example. And we've got, like I said, we've got Chinese here who are here legally, but I'll give you an example about Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe has got so many people who are here illegally. It's a fact. You can't deny it.
Sure.
Their government knows that. But there was a case in point where Dr. Malinga, I can't remember, I think it's somebody, who went that side, and when they checked, his documentation was not correct. He was deported.
Immediately. And I remember there was a time where they even said some jobs in Zimbabwe are going to reserved for Zimbabweans.
They are protected, some space for Zimbabweans. If you go to Botswana, some sectors are protected only for Zimbabweans. It is only us here when we raise that such question to say, protect the microeconomy. And we've been saying this since from 2018 to say, protect that space for South Africans. It cannot be termed xenophobic. Because the problem is that when you leave a problem for too long, when you try to resolve it, it appears as though, it's what we're dealing with, but it is legislated to say such people cannot operate in that space. And for you to operate a business, you need to be registered, you need to be paying tax, and that. It's not happening. So for us implementing what the constitution says or what the bylaws says, that would not be xenophobic, but it's a term that we've become to sort of accept.
Being abused with whenever you speak
Yeah,
about this
because
issue.
once you speak about yourself, if you look at what you call this Human Rights Commission and that, if something happens to a non-South Africans, they are quick to jump. But if South Africans really complain, look at now what is happening now in the East Rand, where the community of South Africans who own businesses there, they stood up and said, we don't want any foreign run shops here. They're not fighting. They're just saying, you're not supposed to be here. And here in this community, we'll support our own. I think it is in Ratanda. And I don't know whether you heard, 4 people of that committee have been shot dead. Have you heard anything on the Human Rights Commission? The government is low. Only ATM has pronounced on that, and we will be raising that issue, trying to follow up. But it just shows you to say, in your own space, we have to fight and fight and fight for what is really supposed to be given to you for free. Because that space in the township economy is supposed to be for the South Africans. They should be trading for free. In fact, government should be supporting them even more to try and make them grow. But they are competing with people who are not supposed to be there in the first place. So that is why I was saying, if we can deal with that space, then you'll begin to appreciate the unemployment issue beginning to erupt, because you've got a government that takes stands. You've got a government that is direct. We've got a government that really, shies on issues. And you don't know perhaps whether there are deals that you don't know about between these countries. But really, we've got policies, we've got legislations that's there. And that is why when Zimbabwe deported Dr. Malinga, I said, good shot. So they appreciate their laws and they're implementing them.
I hear what you say, my brother. And I'm going to go into this issue here. Crime is at its highest in South Africa. We are probably the capital of crime. When you hear people talk about South Africa, I don't want to get robbed. I'm not going to that country.
Yeah.
And policing over the years, Lorenzi is growing. You have now Nancy Spani guys, the Kodene Panyapanyas, the green guys.
Yes.
Is that effective? Will ATM maybe increase our force to kind of bring back law and order?
So, look, any addition to the law enforcement agency, it is welcomed. And, because right now in South Africa, we've got problems which are compounded again by what you spoke about, illegal entrance of the country. We don't know who's who in the country. People just do as they please. So really that puts a strain in the SA South African, police service. Amapanyas are adding on there. Although, their scope is still not really clear.
You're not clear whether are you a cop or a security guard.
What are they supposed to be doing in anyway? Yeah. But look, we appreciate any addition. But also what we're saying to the police, they really need to employ more people. Police reservists, they need to employ more police reservists to contribute into the space to fight crime. Crimes differ. There are cyber crimes and so we need to really be in that space. To give you an example, right now there's a standoff issue or whatever, and you find NPA, they'll say we don't have capacity to investigate such type of crimes. And these happen every day. You hear about being defrauded in Maliabo, a pension. We really need to start. Yeah, but with the current minister,
we'll see.
There's no hope. But yes, indeed, we support the addition of the police forces. But also we're saying, if we can deal with the illegal entrants, know who's who,
and where they come from, it's better.
Can assist us in trying to deal with the crime. Because unless we deal with that, we'll be fighting a losing battle always.
My brother, in closing, the youth are watching. Young people will be going to the polls in May. Why should I vote for ATM as a young South African? Why should I give you power to govern this country?
I think the first point to note is that we have the youngest president in the National Assembly by the name of Vuyelo Tuzungula. We are a party that is really grounded in values. Ubuntu, umntu ngabantu, we're very much, into understanding and building a character of a human being. Because we believe without building umuntu as somebody that has got principle, that has got values, you can take him and place him in politics, because that is why we've got the type of politician that we have. And we're saying they really need to vote for us because, one, we advocate for the microeconomy to be protected for only South Africans.
Yes.
We advocate to say, there are clear things that you can resolve, like we spoke now about Eskom and that, with the clear political will. We're a party that is self-funding, by the way. And we've got parties that are funded by, characters that you can name them. we're a self-funding party because we don't want to be, told somewhere to say, hey, change their chief, change their chief. Our members, we make donations to the party every month. Currently, we don't have money, we try and push because we want to be true to the people that elect us. And so it is quite important for young people to vote for us in that sense. We want to diversify the economy. We want to have the real economy that is thriving. Umuntu say Mtubatuba, Etujwa, somewhere, we will go there and revive those economies because currently you've got townships, those rural townships that are now occupied by people coming from elsewhere. And that is why we find everyone coming to Joburg, coming to where we're saying we need to go back and revive those, those provinces in the economy so that we can distribute the economy properly. But other than that, yes, we would say that, there's much more. It's just that, it's a podcast that we're in, which is limited time, but otherwise I can go on. But yes, please vote for ATM and yeah, we're true to the people and we'll remain that. If people have time, they can go back to our present addresses in Parliament and see how consistent it was for the entire 2 years. We hold people accountable. We're in the forefront of dealing with Palapala. We're in the forefront of writing a letter now to Blaine Zimande about the corruption that is happening at NEFSAS. We're also concerned really about the universities which seem to, be rolling a lot of academics which are not really South Africans. You find some departments, their department in the universities is made from people, 80% by people from outside. And it really, give us a shadow of a doubt to say, I think South African university or what. But those are the things that we're trying to address because we're patriots and we've got a clear vision going forward.
No, that's Luyanda Msipha. Luyanda Msipha from ATM. Did he get your vote? Will you be voting for the ATM in May? That's your decision. This was Manifesto Unpacked. I am Bafana Modise. And yeah, let's meet same time, same place next week as we unpack all the manifestos of each and every political party, making sure, helping you to make an informed decision when you go out to vote in May. As I've said, this is Manifesto Unpacked. I am Bafana Modise, proudly brought to you by a podcast party. Tune in, turn up, take action. Ciao, ciao, bye.